Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something quite profound. We're looking at accountability, deception, and this powerful idea of returning the lie.
You're right.
We've got some fascinating source material here, and our goal is to unpack where responsibility, ultimately sits when it comes to sin and temptation.
Yeah, and what's really striking in these sources is that this idea, returning the lie, it's not about trying to shift blame for what we do. It's more about understanding how deception actually works, finding the source, the mastermind, if you will, and seeing where that responsibility lies. Our sources draw this really clear line. Satan is the mastermind, and humans.
Yeah.
We're the accomplices.
Mastermind versus accomplices. That framing itself is, it's powerful. So how did this mastermind operate? What exactly were the lies being sown?
Well, the sources are quite specific. Satan apparently pushed ideas like God's commandments being flawed or maybe impossible to follow, or even that disobeying wouldn't really result in death, the classic temptations. He supposedly even suggested that defying God could make humans like God. And a key part seems to be presenting sin as sweet, promising comfort, pleasure, hinting that, maybe you could get away with it, dodge judgment. The goal behind all this, to create a deep misunderstanding of God.
Right. And that misunderstanding, that's what the sources pinpoint as the root cause, leading to transgression. There's also that angle where Satan depicted God's laws, especially if they cause hardship, as almost kind of cruel. Instruments of murder, the text says, which really twists the perception of divine justice. Okay, so that's the deception part. But what about us, the accomplices? Where does our responsibility come in?
That's the critical question, isn't it? The material points to an inherent vulnerability in humans, a kind of greed or a will to sin. Satan exploits this, absolutely. But, and this is crucial, the sources strongly emphasize that even if you're deceived, the choice to commit a crime is one's own.
Okay, so the buck still stops with the individual choice.
Exactly. It underlines personal accountability. The source even says, basically, if there's no internal greed, deception can't really take root.
Wow, that's quite direct. So let's make this practical. What does returning the lie actually mean in practice? How do we do it?
It's framed as a really profound, conscious act. It means rejecting the source of the sin, Satan's deceptive stories, and importantly, abandoning that internal will to sin. The sources use this really vivid picture, the high priest laying hands on the Azazel goat. Now, often we think of that goat carrying away Israel's sins, but our material interprets it differently. It's not about transferring the sins themselves, that atonement is handled elsewhere. Instead, laying hands on the goat symbolizes returning the lies Satan sowed.
Okay, so it's less about offloading guilt and more about actively pushing back against the origin of the temptation, rejecting the lie of self.
Precisely. It signifies hating your sin, yes, but also hating the deception that led to it. And crucially, it represents a determination never to sin again.
A real commitment, then, severing ties with the deception and the internal desire for it.
Yes. And while we're doing that, returning the lies, abandoning the will to sin, there's this other huge piece the sources bring in. They state very clearly, the Lord Jesus Christ already bore the sins of the saints. His sacrifice, as the last Adam, dealt with the transgressions of the accomplices, is what makes forgiveness possible.
Right. And that sacrifice, it fundamentally undermines Satan's core lie, doesn't it? It shows God's commandments aren't instruments of murder, but expressions of love and justice. It completely refutes Satan's narrative.
It does. And ultimately, the sources say the mastermind, Satan, faces his own judgment. His lies get exposed, his claims are nullified. He'll pay the price for his sin with his own blood, ending up in the lake of fire.
So this deep dive really separates things out. The tempter, the choice we make, and where the ultimate accountability falls.
Yeah, it draws a sharp line between the origin of the lie and our own responsibility for acting on it. And it shows the real power in actively identifying and rejecting those falsehoods.
Which brings us to a final thought for you, our listener. If recognizing and consciously returning a lie can help dismantle that inner will to sin, well, what other, maybe more subtle deceptions might you be holding on to? And what kind of freedom might you find if you decided to consciously return those lies too? Something to chew on.